Howdy friends, it's me, Mr. B, and the purpose of this video is to very quickly remind you of a way to make your sentences more powerful by adding appositives. Appositives. So before Easter, we had a couple of times that we practiced adding details to our sentences by adding appositives. And we're going to practice that again today because practice makes progress. We don't want to be perfect, but we want to make progress. All right, so very briefly, an appositive it's not a complete sentence, it's a fragment. And in an appositive, the appositive comes after a noun, and its purpose is to add details or information about that noun. So, if you take a look at, on today's lesson, on the Earth Day appositives sheet, you will get a paper that looks like this. So please write your name and number at the top, and the directions say to write complete sentences with the ideas below and adding an appositive or a positive fragment in the part of the sentence indicated by the blank. Remember to write the entire sentence and to include the capital letters and the appropriate end mark. All right, so what you're going to do is think of an appositive that will come after these words, that will tell more about these words. Write it on the line and then rewrite the whole sentence so that you have a powerful sentence. So the first sentence says, Earth Day, comma, blank, comma, is a day when we dedicate ourselves to caring for our environment. So yesterday we spent some time learning about Earth Day. So the purpose of this appositive is to add a detail, something that you think is important about Earth Day. So think, what did we learn about Earth Day? We learned that it started 50 years ago. That's almost as old as me, but not quite. It was started by a peaceful problem solver from Wisconsin named Gaylord Nelson. We learned that it's always on April 22nd. So that's 3 things we know. Maybe you know some other things. So pick one of those details and add it into this space, and then down here write your whole sentence. So I might say my detail that I think is really cool is I might say something like Earth Day, comma, started 50 years ago by Gaylord Nelson of Wisconsin, comma, is a day when we dedicate ourselves to caring for our environment. So that's a lot of words that I just came up with, but I think it's so cool. So then I would write down here, I would copy this, Earth Day with capitals, then my comma, and then I would write started 50 years, come all the way over to the left, ago, by Gaylord, that's his name, so it starts with a capital G, Nelson of Wisconsin, that's the name of a place, so it starts with a capital W, comma, is a day when we dedicate ourselves to caring, and if I need more room I could come down here, for our environment, period. Okay? Now, you don't have to write those words. Pick your own words. Tell the world what you think is cool about Earth Day and put it as a detail in that appositive. All right. Second sentence is on the second page. It's on the back, and it says, I'm sorry, my printer was really having a fun time, and it printed a bunch of extra ink, but we're going to go with the flow. So it says reducing, comma, blank, comma, is an important way to care for our environment. So when we read the Scholastic News and we read the book called Earth Day Every Day yesterday, one of the things that was talked about was reducing. Right? Reducing is one of the 3 R's. Remember, we're going to reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce, reuse, recycle. So this appositive, the purpose of it, since it comes after the word reducing, is to tell more about reducing. So what can you tell about reducing? Well, if you don't remember what reducing is, then go back into yesterday's lesson and re-watch the video that I made where I read to you those the Scholastic News and the book, Earth Day Every Day. Or think about the word reducing. To reduce means to do less of something, especially it means to use less resources, because the fewer resources we use, the less pollution it creates for the world. So you could say reducing, which means to use less resources, is an important way to care for our environment. Or you could say reducing. Remember in the book Earth Day Every Day, they talked about having a trading day where you trade. I think actually that was reusing. So we'll save that because the third one's reusing. That'd be a good example of a trading day. But reducing, they talked about turning off the water when you don't need it. So how about reducing, comma, like turning off the water when you brush your teeth, comma, is an important way to care for our environment. Or you could say, give another example of reducing, like reducing, comma, like turning off the lights when you leave the room, comma, is an important way to care for our environment. Think of your own example of reducing, or retell what reducing means and put that in your appositive, and then write the whole sentence. Capital R, reducing, comma, appositive about reducing, comma, is an important way to care for our, if you need more room, you can come down here, environment, period. Then for number 3, it says reusing, comma, there's your blank for your appositive, comma, is another important way to help our environment. So now the appositive, the purpose of it is to talk more about reusing. So what does reusing mean? It means to use something again. So in the book, they talked about having a trading day where they traded things with each other, right? So they traded old clothes for old equipment instead of throwing them out. That's reusing, which uses less resources and causes less pollution. Do you know one of my favorite ways of reusing? I love to go to stores like Goodwill. There's a lot of good stuff, a lot of good clothes. And instead of those clothes getting thrown out, you can buy them at Goodwill, and it's very affordable. So you could say reusing, which means to use things again, comma, is another way to help our environment. Or you could say reusing, comma, like having a trading day, comma, is another important way to help our environment. Or reusing, comma, like shopping at Goodwill, comma, is another important way to help our environment. If you do mention Goodwill, that's a name of a store, so what kind of a G does it start with? A capital G. And after you do that, then you're going to rewrite the whole sentence. So capital R, reusing, comma. Then write that whole appositive that you write up here. Rewrite it down here. Comma is another important way to help our environment, period. All right, so I wish you luck coming up with really awesome appositives about Earth Day. Teach the world, tell the world what you know about Earth Day, about reducing, and about reusing. I thank you, God thanks you, and the Earth thanks you. Good job, everyone.